I would say that people get wrong about Black women in leadership, that we're angry and that we don't want to be a part of the team. I think that that's a big thing that people get wrong, when really it's completely the opposite. Oftentimes we do so much to try to assimilate, from our hair, from the hobbies, music we listen to, just because we really just want to be accepted by our peers. And I think it can be even more difficult as a Black mom. And there's some maybe misperceptions about that we're not as committed, and I would say it's completely the opposite. And so I do think the way to address that really has been building those one-on-one relationships, so those intimate relationships with people, getting people to see you as a human being on that one-to-one level. That really has helped me help other people see who I am as an individual and make them want to get to know me. And so I really try to have one-on-one conversations and not so much on email or text, because a lot gets lost in those situations, and really allow myself to be vulnerable and let people get to know me, which can be scary. It can be scary because we all want to be wanted and needed, and we have this fear of rejection. And so I do think that it takes a lot to kind of lean into that. And to be honest, that kind of circles back to the mentorship and helping other people see that this is a pathway to kind of knock down some of those barriers. So I would say those are some of the challenges, but they can be overcome when you allow people to really get to know you. And there will be situations where, regardless if they know you or not, they don't want to support you and don't want to be around you. And that's the beauty of you having other champions, because you don't need to kind of fight dirty or let someone else take down your brand. You build those other relationships and other people who are going to lift your name up and who know you as an individual, instead of trying to maybe fight dirty with someone if they, deem you, inappropriate to be in an organization.
Please welcome to the stage Susan Chapman Hughes, Independent Director at Toast Inc. and J.M. Smucker Company; Wanda Bryant Hope, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, Johnson & Johnson; Ivory Harris, Global Chief Human Resource Officer, AGCO Corporation. Moderated by Nikki Bethel, CEO, Emma Bowen Foundation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our very first ever session featuring a wildly popular game, Never Have I Ever. Buckle up and get ready for the ride. We plan to cover it all, from emotional intelligence to work-life balance, which even in of itself feels pressure-filled. We'll go with work-life integration. We're going to talk about negotiation tips, enhancing our relationships. What do we do when we can't retreat physically, but we can retreat in our heads, as we've all learned how to do? Not to suggest that we ever did it perfectly, but we do figure it out along the way. I'd like to share with you, joining me this afternoon is Susan Chapman Hughes, Wanda Bryant Hope, and Ivory Harris. Congratulations, Ivory. Shout out to the newest member of the ELC. Susan is an independent director of the J.M. Smucker Company, where she serves on the compensation committee. She is also an independent director of Toast, where she chairs the compensation committee. Previously, she served as independent director for Potbelly Corporation, where she led both the compensation and audit committees. Susan holds a Master of Business Administration in Real Estate and Urban Land Economics from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She also holds a Master of Regional Planning from the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and a Bachelor of Science in Engineering from Vanderbilt University, Vandy. She lives in New York with her husband and her daughter. Wanda is an accomplished business executive with significant experience in general management, marketing, sales, human resources, just to name a few. She currently serves as Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at Johnson & Johnson and is responsible for globally advancing the company's diversity, equity, and inclusion outcomes, strengthening the DEI capabilities, and driving growth through innovation. Hello. Wanda received her Bachelor of Science degree in marketing from the Pennsylvania State University. She and her husband, Bobby, are the proud parents of Tyler, their 14-year-old son. Last but certainly not least, we have Ivory Harris. Ivory is the Senior Vice President, Chief Human Resources Officer for AGCO, better known as Alice Gleaner Corporation. Girl, you know I had to look that up. Ms. Harris is responsible for leading the development and execution of high-impact talent strategies that deliver winning outcomes for AGCO's employees and stakeholders. Ivory is, as we noted, the newest member of the ELC. She holds her bachelor's degree in social sciences and psychology from the University of Houston. I can't even imagine all the years of education amongst the four of us. I am not getting into my background. You all can Google, go to LinkedIn. We're going to jump into this session. I hope you all are really prepared because we're planning on bringing it and giving our all. There isn't anything that is off limits. As you all have questions, burning questions, passion comments, something resonates with you as you hear any of us speak truth to power, do not hesitate to get in the chat, because while we're in a virtual setting and while this is a fireside chat, this is where you can use your voice with your hands in the chat, so go for it. Ladies, you have your placards. I never have. We're full on going to play with this. Let's kick it off. All right now. Never have I ever been excluded from the boys club. All right now, Susan, can you speak to it, please?
I mean,
when
look,
and where and how did you handle it?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I've worked in real estate, technology, and financial services, which couldn't be more of the boys club, right? So what I realized, though, is that the boys are lonely, right? And they don't have people who they can trust to talk to. And so my kind of superpower that I learned to really lean into was being the trustworthy partner that they could talk to anybody, talk about anything with. And so I'll just, give you an example of when I, worked in real estate. I knew all the CEOs of all of the major real estate companies, and people would be like, oh my God, they call you all the time. Like, why are they calling you, Susan? I said, because they don't have people who they can trust, and they know they can call me, and I will keep their confidence. And I will also tell them the straight shot, right? So, my mother always used to say that people who want something from you tell you what you want to hear, but people who care about you tell you the truth. So I established that caring relationship with them. And one quick story. I remember sitting at dinner with one of them, and he was like, oh, me and my wife are having such a hard time. And I was like, why? He was like, because our 16-year-old is out of control. And I was like, really? Do tell. Because, I had a Black mama. So, I was like, well, I want to see what out of control is for y'all versus us, because this is a very different thing. So, so he was like, she's drinking. She's like hanging out with her friends. She's, experimenting with drugs. She's all this other kind of stuff. I said, oh, y'all got your hands full. And so I said, well, can I ask you a few questions? He was like, yeah. I was like, so does she have a phone? He was like, yeah. She have a car? He was like, yeah. I was like, does she have any boundaries? Like, does she have to be at home at a certain time? Does she have any limits? Does she have any? And he was like, no. I was like, well, no wonder she's wilding out, because kids are going to push to have boundaries. And the fact that you giving her no boundaries means she feels like she can do whatever. He was like, yeah, because, she took my credit card and went and spent $50,000 on some stuff. And I was like, well, how does that work? Because $50,000, first of all, my mama didn't have $50,000 worth of credit, but $5,000 would have been a real problem for me. And I wouldn't have come home. And he was like, oh, we just don't know what to do. I said, okay, well, I tell you what, call your wife. Y'all, we gonna get together and have dinner. So I said, because y'all need to be on the same page. So we got together. We were having dinner. I said, y'all, I think that we need to have a drastic like intervention for this girl. And they're like, what? I said, I think you need to send her on a mission trip somewhere where she don't have no phone. She don't have no car. She got to live with people who are like really poor. And I was like, and you got to leave her there for like 3 or 4 weeks. So she really understands like, what's up? He was like, oh, I don't think I can do it. I said, well, I tell you what, I'll tell her that she's going. And so they were like, you would do that? And I was like, absolutely. So we set it up. I went over to their house. I told her, I said, listen, you wilding out. Your parents are really concerned that you're going to be a non-producing citizen of the country. They think that you are on a bad track. And she was like, I'm just having a hard time. I was like, oh, well, we're going to fix that because you're going to go on this trip and you're going to do this work. And so she was like, I don't know if I can handle that. I said, trust me, I believe in you, girl. You can do it. You can go there. You're going to be so impactful. This girl went on that trip. She came back as a new person. And to this day, her parents are like, oh my God, we're so grateful for you helping us figure that out. But I think you have to figure out what is your superpower. Like, what's the thing that is going to allow you to connect with people and do it one at a time if that's what you have to do. Because when guys get in a group, they become a whole different thing, right? Entity. And so find out how you can create connections with people. Because at the end of the day, I don't care. I've worked around the world. I've done business with a lot of people. People just want to be happy. They want their kids to be safe and they want a future for them. They want to eat good food and live a good life. And if you can figure out how to connect on those basic things, you'll figure out how to get into the club.
And I think you would agree, connecting in that way is human. You talked about parenting, you're talking about children, regardless as to race, regardless as to ethnicity, gender, it almost actually in that regard doesn't matter because you then identified on a deeper level outside of work. And I'm sure that colleague is forever now indebted to you for a whole host of reasons that didn't necessarily have to do with work, but you were able to have impact. I love the superpower moment for you. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, let's get it. Have you ever missed your child's event due to work obligations? Oh, okay, please. Can you speak on it, Ivory? Because I need to take a page out of your book. Ooh,
it's so simple. I don't have any children.
Okay, seriously, that was just a little too easy now, Ivory.
It was not strategic or anything. It just didn't happen. I don't have anything to miss. So,
Nikki, I'd be happy to share on that one. So I have, and it's been one time. So, the story that was just shared resonates with me. My son actually will be 16 in this March. And, when he was in, I would say about 4th grade, he had one of those Halloween parties where the kids dress up and they parade around the parking lot or whatever. And on my calendar, I had the parade at 3:00. The parade was at 2:00. And I got there at 3:00, right? So it wasn't an intentional miss. It was poor planning on my part. And I will never forget the look on his little face. And he was like, Mommy, I was the only one that didn't have a parent here. That was the only event that I've ever missed in that child's life. And the way that I manage it is it's around prioritizing for me, right? So whatever it is around my personal life, my family, it's around prioritizing. So when the school schedule comes out in the spring, I take that schedule and all of those big events, whether it be parent-teacher conferences, the school play. Right now, he runs track. He's pretty good, too. We're going to watch for this kid, all right? But he runs track. So when the track schedule comes out, I print it out. I go to my work calendar and I put every event on. And my team and all of those around me know when it says event, family event, Tyler event, track event, you don't touch it. And I mean, you don't touch it. So I have a couple of rules that I use, right? So one of them is, it's called my 911 rule. And it's a rule I put in place when I go on vacation. And my rule is that I am always going to have my cell phone on me, always. And I say to my team, when I'm on vacation or I'm on my personal time, you guys can call me for whatever you need. But the first question I'm going to ask you is, did you call 911 first? Because when I'm on vacation and you call me, I want to know, are the police on the way? Is the ambulance coming? Is the fire department there? Because whatever you tell me must be life-threatening, urgent for you to disturb me on my vacation. So I say it in like a joking way, but everybody gets it. I'm on vacation, 911 time. Look, right before we started this, literally 10 minutes before we got on this call, I got a text and it says, I'm on vacation starting on Thursday. It says, I know this cuts into your vacation, but I can't tell you what the rest of the text said. I cannot tell you because I'm like, I'm not even answering it, right? But it's about, we work so hard, and our vacation, our personal time, it really is our time. And I think one thing that everyone has realized over the last 2 years, as we've dealt with COVID-19, as we've dealt with the reckoning around racial and social injustice that just came to light for so many people around the world, I think one of the things that we've recognized is we have to protect our mental well-being. We have to give ourselves time to rest, to relax, to recuperate, because if we don't do those things, not only are we not good for ourselves and for our families, we're not good for work either. So I think that for me, it's really just about prioritizing and making sure that I am planning for my personal time, just like I do for my work time. And when it's on there, it's a priority, and I protect it, and I make sure that everyone around me knows that that's time to be protected.
Wanda, what I appreciate about what you just said, if I could frame it, you and I have similar philosophies, but I wasn't always that way. It took having unfortunate experiences with my Sydney, who's 8, to realize what my priorities needed to be. And it took a mentor framing it for me in this way. She said, Nikki, we have glass balls and we have rubber balls.
Yeah.
Rubber balls will bounce back, no problem. Glass balls, once they break, they're broken. There's no putting it back together. So be thoughtful about who sits in your glass ball camp and who sits in your rubber ball camp, and make decisions accordingly. So I'm happy to say today I'm on the same page with you around, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, it doesn't get done. And I think we have to put our foot down about that, or there's always going to be an emergency that all of a sudden takes up all your time, and now you're not doing the thing that you really want to be remembered for by your loved ones. Right. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I have this other saying, Nikki, that I always say at the end of the day, the very end of the day, when I am laid out in front of First Baptist Church in Somerville, New Jersey, I used to say in a pine casket, now I say in a mahogany casket, no one is going to talk about, oh, you know what? She worked extra long hours. She gave up her vacation time. You know what? She was able to cut her budget by 20%. They're going to talk about the kind of mother I was, the kind of wife I was, the kind of friend I was, what I did for my community. No one's going to remember all of those little things that you may have given up along the way that ate into you personally and ate into the things that are really important. So, I always think about that like, you've got to prioritize the things that really are important and meaningful in life, and making sure that you're keeping it in perspective.
Hey, Nikki, can I just add one quick thing to this?
Of course.
Because, one of the things that I realize is oftentimes we frame it in terms of disappointment for our kids. But actually, like, we're missing out on something that is really important for us. And the amount of joy that we get from seeing our kids thrive, and the amount of self-fulfillment that comes from feeding our soul, of engaging with our kids. It's also about us. And I just think we shouldn't miss that piece. because, you know, a lot of us had to work really hard to get our kids, and we, you know, waited a long time. And, you know, we can have a whole nother conversation on Black women professionals and fertility.
Yes,
Hello.
we can.
Because it ain't like everybody makes it out to be, right? We should have a conversation about that. But I think that we should just be cognizant that when we're thinking about helping ourselves be whole, spending quality time with our kids and experiencing those events is just as much a part of helping ourselves as it is helping them.
Amen.
All right, now we're going to church with it. Okay. Let's get it. Have you ever made more money or held a position higher than that of your significant other? Ooh, how did I know? How did I know? Come on, Ivory. Speak to it. Speak to it.
Yeah, this is a tough one, honestly, right? So I think that, well, first I only just got married in December of last year. And I think because of that history has probably played in why I only got married at 48, right? Because I had a series of different relationships where I had a stronger career path, or I had a higher level position, or I was making more money. And this really had an impact on the relationship. In the beginning, it was great. Everybody wants an independent woman. Everyone wants someone who's ambitious, who can handle their own. But the confidence and, you know, all the other things that come with that don't always fit in a relationship, right? And so, first of all, I think I had to get real about the type of partner I was choosing, and what would work for me, what was important to me, whether I wanted to, you know, there were times when I did play small to make somebody else feel okay, you know, with what was happening. And then I decided I don't want to do that anymore. I don't have to do that anymore. And I chose to grow myself, focus on myself, and say, you know, what's important to me? There are trade-offs. And to be in this relationship, do I want to be with someone who's a partner, who's going to celebrate me, who's going to be proud with me, proud of me? I can do the same thing for them. Or do I constantly want to feel like there's this battle that's going on? As I've gotten older, I think there's a battle about a lot of things, right? It's not just about career and money and things like that. But I think what I've ultimately learned is you have to talk about tough things, difficult things in the beginning. Relationship is conflict, period, right? There are things that you're going to agree on. There are things that you're going to disagree on, but you have to be very clear about what your values are. I've learned to be a little more open and vulnerable in that conversation, you know, what that means. In my current relationship, nothing has changed as far as, yeah, I do make more money. Yes, I do have, you know, this position, but at the end of the day, we're partners, right? He has goals, he has dreams, I have goals, I have dreams. Together, we have targets, we have connection. And it hasn't gotten, those challenges haven't gone away, but I think I and the partner that I've chosen, we've gotten better at navigating through them. These are real things. I don't think, you know, there's so much in society, there's family that gets involved. You know, I actually had to say recently to one of my aunts, God bless her, she's always got my back. She's looking out for me. She's like, you know, have you made the right decision? You know, I always thought you'd marry an X or a Y. And I had to say, look, I'm the executive that y'all wanted me to marry. And if it was a different thing, we wouldn't have this problem. We wouldn't have this conversation. This is my choice. This is what I want. I am happy. We are partners. And so I've learned how to navigate that, but it's not easy. Every day, something else comes up that, you know, can create a problem. And we have tools to help us talk through that and to help us navigate through that so that we stay focused on where we're going and what's important for us.
Ivory, thank you, because I think too many of us have been taught that we are to play small, whether it's playing to the male ego. In my family, we're Caribbean. That's a whole nother added layer of machismo. Girl, we could do a panel on that onto itself. But I appreciate that you didn't just say yes. You spoke about what it is that you've done thus far to ensure success, which is communication. and being honest about it in ways that we haven't always been taught, nor has it been modeled for us, whether it's what we saw in our own homes or in that of our significant others. If we don't have someone showing us that there's a real way to do this, a healthy way to do this, where you don't have to snuff out your light for somebody else's to shine brighter. So I really appreciate you saying that. My husband and I went to therapy. It's called imago therapy, where you learn to give each other feedback in a constructive way, not in a personal feeling attacked way, where you actually ask for an appointment. Because much like the HR in me, you never know what type of weekend someone's had. You don't know what they're going to on a Friday or what they're coming back from on a Monday. So the rule of thumb is you don't fire on a Friday, you don't fire on a Monday. Just giving grace to people in the space that they may be in. But I don't know that we extend that same courtesy in our relationships. So, thank you. I can see the facial expressions of our fellow sisters on the panel, and I can only imagine that this could become a full-on conversation. Any burning comments from either of you? Because your facial expressions were speaking volumes.
Look, I think the only thing that I'll say is, like, if you did a survey of women, executive women, like 95% of them would be the major breadwinner in their family. Like, so it's not an unusual thing, but I do think that this is probably the first time I've actually heard a public forum of us talking about it. Mm-hmm. Right. There's so many things that we don't talk about. And, you know, as we are thinking about giving advice to younger women who are coming up, those of you all who are on this call, like, these are the things that are going to make your life easier. We could give you advice about how to navigate in corporate America all day long, but the life advice of how you balance these real things are the things that are going to save your soul, right? Keep your hair from falling out and keep you from like not sleeping at night. So, which, you know, there's a whole list of these kind of, like, I think taboo topics that we hadn't talked about. And we've already brought up a couple of them. Fertility is one of them. Making more money than your spouse is the other one. And one day we'll talk about menopause. But I'm going to leave that right there.
Well, I'll pick up where you left it. I went through that I'm in my mid 40s and my early 40s, late 30s. So when I tell you I'm thankful that I was at least able to have one, because then thereafter, the response was no, not today. So, girl, yes, that is a whole nother panel. On that note, and talk about perfect segue, never have I ever been self-conscious about my appearance at work. Ladies, talking your hair, how we roll with bringing our ethnicity with us in whatever shape, form, or fashion. Okay, now, can you please speak to it, Wanda?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, when we're in these corporate environments or whatever the work environment is, I think that particularly when I was coming up in my career, and I know we're speaking to women that are earlier in their careers, you do feel this kind of pressure to conform, right? Because you always feel like you have to, at least this is the way I felt, right? Like I had to be perfect. I couldn't have any kind of chunk in the armor, or else people wouldn't believe me. They wouldn't trust me. They wouldn't think I was worthy. They wouldn't think I was good enough. All of those kinds of things. So, you know, I remember early on in my career, like I always came really, really like buttoned up into work, right? So always had the suit, even when others were dressing more casual. I always felt like I had to have the jacket on, and for some reason, I always felt like I needed to wear pants. I never wanted to wear skirts. I always had to have a pantsuit on. And, you know, and that was just, it was sort of my uniform at work. And then as I grew in my career, I grew in myself, right? In my own self-confidence and understanding what I was bringing to the organization, the value that I was bringing, my contributions, and really, I think getting stronger in my own self-confidence. Then I felt more comfortable in sort of being myself at work, right? So I want to recognize that I know when you're early in your career, it may not be as easy to say, I'm just going to be my full self. But, you know, I do think that as you get stronger and you get more confident in yourself. Now, listen, I'm not sure if the generations that are coming up have the same issues that we've had. I think it's really different these days, which is a very positive thing. that, I think the generations that are coming into the workforce now really have this desire to be their authentic selves. And I think a lot of the work that we've done around inclusion and belonging has helped to generate those messages in those environments that it's okay, And so, like I'll tell you, I used to, when I was early in my career, I remember going into the office and I used to have this little mantra that I said to myself every day. I'd get out of the car. I had my music playing, whatever I was doing that was authentic Wanda. I'd walk through the parking lot and then I would get to the curb. And every day I said this in my head, armor up. And what you're doing there, Nikki, that's exactly what it was. I said in my mind, armor up. And that meant the armor came on, the shield came on, the work Wanda came on, which was really different than the personal Wanda sometimes. And then I kind of went in with that, with that feeling of I can't be my true authentic self, because then maybe I won't belong. Maybe they won't believe me. All of the stereotypes that come into play around women, Black people, all of those things were playing in my mind. But again, as I grew in my leadership, grew in my own personal confidence, those things started to sort of slip away. And I'll tell you, I remember coming home when I got into this role in diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? So I was named the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Johnson & Johnson. And as I was building out our new strategy and understanding all of these things that I was doing throughout my career that I hadn't really had a name or a term from yet, right? So I didn't realize I was covering. I didn't realize all of those things. And I came home to one night and I said to my husband, you know what? For the first time, I feel free. Because first of all, I have terminology to understand what some of those things were. And it's now my job to be my authentic self. If I can't do it and role model it, how can I build a culture within this organization that's doing it? And it was just really this kind of profound moment for me. And I share that a lot when I'm speaking internally at J&J or externally, because I want others, the generations that are coming up, to not have to go through 20 years of their career before they feel free, like they can be their authentic selves. We have to value everything that everyone is bringing into the organization. And so, yeah, that's just kind of how it went throughout my career. But there definitely were those moments early on where I did feel like I had to dress a certain way and hide bits and pieces of myself that others wouldn't understand, that I no longer do.
Oh, see, here we go. I wish we had more time. I'm looking at the clock. I'm mindful of where we are. There's just never going to be enough time. But that brings me to when we talk about first voice, second voice, authentic, how we show up in public spaces. Never have I ever been on a work call, especially while in COVID, when my kid had to walk into the room and say, Mommy, what voice is that? Okay, I saw you just mumble.
Well,
I see you all said I haven't. All right, I got to take a page out of your book. Can you speak to it, Susan, please?
Yeah, I mean, as I listen to Wanda talk about the journey that she went on, I think we all went on that journey, right? Because we didn't have role models who were in corporate America. Most of my friends who are Black female executives, our parents were not executives in corporate America. Right. Like literally, I knew one Black person who was an executive in corporate America. He ended up moving across the street from us when I was like 15 years old. And I was like, what is that? Like, what does that look like? And he was a first generation of person to be able to be a Black executive. And so I think that we all have kind of like gone on this journey. But what I've learned is, again, you always get the advice from your parents, right? So I remember when I was very young, I came home from school and I was like, Mom, I'm having a hard time with this friendship or whatever, and so on and so forth. I feel like maybe I should be a little bit different. And she was like, listen, you should just be yourself, because when you send your representative to the table, eventually people going to find you out. So you're going to spend a lot less energy just being yourself. And I never have forgotten that, because, the thing that for us as Black women is a lot of people don't want us at the table, right? But a lot of people recognize that they need us at the table, but they then want us to be at the table in a way that is comfortable for them. And that's not what's good for us. And so I think over time, I learned how to be myself. I remember being very on in the natural hair movement, mainly because my hair was like super thick, very long, and I was tired of spending 8 hours in the salon. I was like, look, this is stupid. I'm just gonna cut my hair off. Oh my goodness. Ivory, I was thinking about your aunt, because my aunts and grandmother were like, what? You gonna cut your hair? Oh, what's wrong with you? And I was like, yo, I'm tired of it. So I cut my hair in a little bob and was like, in a little fro, and like went to the barbershop. It was amazing, because I went from spending $160 to spending $10. And I was like, wow, how come everybody isn't doing this? But then I realized that a lot of people were like, oh, that is so courageous that you cut your hair. And I was like, really? This is courage? Because this just feels like a natural thing for me to do. But over time, I've realized that showing up as ourselves is just something that we haven't been conditioned to do. All of the messages of beauty, of acceptability, are all things that, cherry pick from us, but package them in a very European way. And so, we feel this need to want to do that. I'll tell you, we have really come a long way. So, Wanda, you talk about young people today not feeling the need to do this. I love going in corporate spaces, and I see braids, and I see locks, and I see blue hair, and I see all kinds of other things, right? And I also love that recently, we have a Supreme Court Justice nominee whose name is Ketanji, and she wears her hair in sister locks. And I was like, right, we've made progress. Yes. Because, nobody's talking about her hair, right? Nobody's talking about her hair at all. And I was like, this is actually a monumental moment for us as people. And so I think that for me, especially now that I have a 6-year-old daughter who watches everything I do, I have to model behavior for her so that she understands that it is acceptable for her to be completely okay by herself. And to the Zoom meeting, so anybody who ever met Parker, my child, knows that she ain't never met a stage that she don't love, and never met a group of people that she can't engage with. And so she'll, I'm in my office, I'll hear the little feet coming, and she'll be like, Mommy, I want to come say hi. So instead of me being like, no, Parker, whatever, I'm like, come on, say hi, right? I was on a board call the other day, and she came in and she was like, Mommy, I just learned this new song at my voice class. And she's like, I want to sing it. So I told everybody, I said, listen, we're about to have a 3-minute break because Parker's going to sing for us so we can hear what she learned. And my baby can sing. So she knocked it out. It changed the whole tenor of the meeting, right? Everybody was feeling all relaxed. We got it done, and people were still talking. They were like, oh, that was so great that she actually, when she sang that song, it made me feel so good. They're still talking about it. So I think that, just being all inclusive and like living your full life as yourself, saves you some headaches, but also sends a signal to the people that we love that it's okay, because they don't need more pressure. Right? They don't need more stressors. The last thing you want to be trying to do when you're trying to perform is to have to worry about, oh, how are they going to think about me if my child comes in here, or if I have to, stop and go do whatever. Like real leaders, and we are at a very clear inflection point in the world, right? So, and this is what I say to people. I'm writing this book, and the title of it is Why Should I Follow You? Because I believe that empathetic leadership are the leaders who are going to win. The leaders who can really put themselves in other people's shoes, that really understand that the power of the people that work for them is really the thing that's going to drive the business results for them, right? And leaders who understand that these people come with full selves, with social issues that they are concerned about, with understanding that the communities that they live in, they don't want to leave that at the door when they come to the office, which is why so many people are choosing companies that are mission driven, right?
Absolutely.
And they are choosing leaders that have mission and connection. And so if we don't become the leaders that model that behavior, and who better to do it than Black women, right? Because we've been doing it for years. Now it's time for us to get credit for it.
And frankly, that's because I think we always appreciated the art of, we had to navigate our home lives. We had to navigate a whole different way of being and figure out that life straddling corporate, which is sometimes mainstream, which doesn't always mean there's room for us. We've often been in the margins.
That's right.
But I agree with you, bringing our whole selves into the workforce, reading the room, reading the tea leaves, taking into account culture and climate of your organization, but then figuring out where you get in and where you fit in. So ladies, I don't even know seriously where the time went. I feel like we barely scratched the surface, but here we are about to wrap. I want to thank you three. How I would love to end this is if each of you could throw out a piece of advice that's been invaluable that you've received. You can't go into too much detail, but hit us with a piece that you continually remind yourself, whether in sticky situations or all is well. What do you tell yourself to keep going? Ivory.
One thing I learned is that the way that I was raised is probably considered Main Street. The world that I work in is considered Wall Street. They have very different values. I think it's important to learn what those values are and to be your advocate and recruit sponsors. Don't wait for people to notice. Don't wait for people to invite you. Invite them.
Okay. Wanda?
Yeah, for me, it would be really figure out who you are and what you value and live into those principles. Because if you are going through life trying to be something that you're not, or working in an area that you don't appreciate or that doesn't align with your personal values, you are set for a miserable life. And so I would say it's, finding those things that are meaningful to you, whether it's a company or whether it's an area that you work in, those things that are passionate and meaningful, and live into that with your full self.
Susan.
So I'm going to go to some OG advice I got from Ann Fudge, who was a longtime member of ELC. Mm-hmm. And Ann told a group of us years ago that you give your personal power away. Nobody takes it from you. And so always protect your personal power and lean into using it.
Okay, now, and I'm gonna wrap all of this up with Nina Simone, what I am aspiring to do, and I encourage all of you in the living room to do the same. How do we get to a place of freedom, truly equating to lack of fear? The self-doubt, when we talk ourselves out of situations we belong in, we're waiting for permission, we're waiting for someone to say it's okay. We get to tell ourselves it's okay, and we get to tell each other it's okay, and it's also okay not to be okay and to talk about it. Self-help, self-care, therapy, huge fan of therapy. If you're not talking to someone, you need to. You can't keep it all bottled in. Pressure busts pipes. I could get into a whole sorority spin here, but I won't. Ladies, thank you so very much for sharing what you have. We really did go from 0 to 90 in 2.2 seconds. And I'm just going to suggest that we do a part 2 down the line where we can cover some of the subjects that we only got to scratch the surface on. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
It's a pleasure.